In the suffocating silence of room 304 at St. Grace Hospital, my world was unraveling thread by agonizing thread. I am Ethan Parker, or at least I was supposed to be, but now, lying comatose in this sterile prison of despair, I felt more like a ghost haunting my own life than an 8-year-old boy fighting for survival. The relentless beeping of the heart monitor echoed through the room, each pulse weaker and slower, as if mocking us with its countdown to the inevitable. My parents, Sarah and Michael, sat on either side of me, their faces etched with exhaustion so profound it seemed they were aging before my eyes. Every tear that streamed down their cheeks felt like a dagger piercing what little remained of our hope. They had poured every ounce of strength, emotional, physical, financial, into keeping me alive, but even the deepest well runs dry eventually. And then there was Charlie, my loyal golden retriever, who refused to leave my side despite the hospital staff's constant attempts to shoo him away. "He's violating protocol," one nurse snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. But how could they understand? To them, Charlie was just a dogged nuisance cluttering their pristine environment. To me, he was my anchor, tethering me to this fragile existence. His warm body pressed against mine, his snout resting gently on my hand, it wasn't just comfort. It was defiance. He defied death itself, refusing to let go when everyone else thought it was time. Yet even Charlie couldn't escape the hostility aimed his way. Each glare from the nurses, each muttered complaint about "that damn dog," added another layer of tension to the already unbearable atmosphere. The weight of everything bore down on us, on Mom and Dad, who couldn't afford another round of treatment, on Charlie, whose unwavering loyalty made him both hero and outcast, and on me, trapped between worlds, unable to wake up or fully fade away. It was as though we were all caught in some cruel cosmic storm, tossed mercilessly by forces beyond our control. And yet, amidst the chaos, something simmered beneath the surface, something neither science nor logic could explain. Something powerful was about to change everything, though none of us knew it yet. The night was a suffocating shroud over room 304, each second stretching into an eternity as Ethan's fragile body teetered on the edge of life and death. The heart monitor's erratic beeping had escalated into a deafening alarm, its piercing sound slicing through the heavy silence like a knife. For 30 agonizing seconds, the screen flatlined, a cruel, unyielding line that seemed to mock Sarah and Michael's desperate prayers. Dr. Coleman stood frozen, his mouth opening but no words coming out, while the nurses scrambled around the room, their movements frantic yet eerily mechanical. Time of death. One nurse began, her voice trembling, but before she could finish, something extraordinary happened. Charlie, who had been pacing restlessly at the foot of the bed, suddenly froze. His ears perked up, his entire body tensed as if he were sensing an invisible force pulling him forward. Without hesitation, he leaped onto the bed just as Ethan's hand twitched faintly, a movement so slight it might have gone unnoticed if not for Charlie's sudden intervention. The dog pressed his warm body against Ethan's frail frame, his snout nuzzling the boy's face with an urgency that bordered on desperation. "Get that dog off the bed," Dr. Coleman barked, his frustration boiling over, but Sarah clung to Charlie with trembling hands. "No, please let him stay," she pleaded, her voice cracking under the weight of despair. Michael gripped the railing of the bed, his knuckles white, as he watched the scene unfold in surreal slow motion. The tension in the room was unbearable. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity, every breath a gamble with fate. Just when all hope seemed lost, the impossible occurred, the monitor flickered back to life. A single, weak pulse appeared on the screen, followed by another and then another. It was as though Charlie's presence had reignited a spark within Ethan, defying logic and science alike. The doctors exchanged bewildered glances, their skepticism warring with the undeniable evidence before them. Sarah collapsed into Michael's arms, her sobs shaking the very air around them. "He's fighting," she whispered hoarsely, clutching Ethan's hand as though afraid he might slip away again. Meanwhile, Charlie remained steadfast, his eyes locked on Ethan's face, his breathing synchronized with the boy's as if they shared some unseen connection. In that moment, the room transformed from a prison of despair into a battleground where love refused to surrender. Though no one could explain what had just transpired, one thing was certain. No human ever could, bridging the gap between life and death with nothing but his unwavering loyalty. In the days following Ethan's miraculous recovery, a deeper mystery began to unravel, one that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural. As Ethan lay in bed, his voice still fragile but filled with emotion, he recounted what felt like an impossible journey into a realm beyond comprehension. "Mom, Dad," he whispered, clutching Charlie's leash tightly as though afraid the dog might vanish at any moment. "When I was in that dark place, it wasn't just Charlie's voice calling me back. I saw him. He was glowing." Sarah froze mid-stroke of Charlie's golden fur, her hand trembling slightly. "Glowing?" she repeated, her voice barely audible. Ethan nodded earnestly, his wide eyes brimming. "He came to me when everything was so cold and scary. There were shadows everywhere, pulling at me, trying to take me somewhere far away. But then Charlie appeared. He had this light around him, like a shield. He barked softly and walked ahead, leading me toward something brighter." Michael leaned forward, his brow furrowed in disbelief, yet unable to dismiss the conviction in his son's words. "Are you saying Charlie guided you out of there?" he asked hesitantly, almost afraid of the answer. Ethan's gaze locked onto his father's, unwavering. "Yes, Dad. He didn't leave me alone for even a second. And when we got closer to the light, I heard him say my name clear but not with words. It was like he was speaking straight into my heart." What made Ethan's account even more unsettling was the testimony from others, who had witnessed something inexplicable during those critical hours. One nurse, Mary, recounted how she had glanced into room 304 late one night and seen a faint, ethereal glow emanating from Charlie's body as he lay beside Ethan. At first, she thought it was a trick of the moonlight filtering through the window, but the light seemed to pulse rhythmically, almost in sync with Ethan's heartbeat on the monitor. "I've worked here for 15 years, Mary confided to Sarah later, her hands shaking as she recounted the memory. "And I've never seen anything like it." It was as if Charlie wasn't just a dog anymore. He was something else entirely. The weight of these revelations hung heavy in the air, casting an eerie yet profound aura over the hospital room. For Sarah and Michael, it was both comforting and terrifying, a reminder that their family had been touched by forces they couldn't begin to understand. Charlie himself remained silent, his weary eyes gazing up at them with an expression that seemed to carry centuries of wisdom. Was it possible? Could a dog possess such power, not just to protect, but to transcend the boundaries of life itself? The days leading up to Charlie's final moments were a harrowing descent into anguish and uncertainty. The loyal golden retriever, who had once been the picture of vitality and strength, now struggled to even lift his head. His breathing grew labored, each inhale a rasping battle against an invisible force that seemed determined to claim him. Yet despite the excruciating pain etched across his face, Charlie summoned every ounce of his waning energy for one last act of devotion. Late one moonlit night, when the hospital room was cloaked in silence, Charlie stirred. His body trembled violently as he forced himself onto unsteady legs, his eyes locked on Ethan with an intensity that defied his frailty. "Charlie, no!" Sarah whispered hoarsely, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched the dog stagger toward the bed. Michael rushed to support the dog, but Charlie pushed forward, refusing assistance. With a final surge of determination, he reached Ethan's side and rested his weary head on the boy's lap, his tail giving a faint thump, a ghost of the wag that used to light up the room. Ethan stirred awake, his voice breaking as he realized what was happening. "Charlie, stay with me," he pleaded, clutching the dog's fur tightly. But even as Ethan begged, it was clear that Charlie's time was slipping away. The dog let out a soft whimper, his gaze never leaving Ethan's face, before collapsing gently onto the floor beside the bed. For a moment, the room froze. Time itself seemed to hold its breath, as Sarah and Michael clung to each other, their sobs filling the suffocating silence. It wasn't just the loss of their beloved companion. It was the crushing weight of everything they'd endured, the mounting medical bills, The sleepless nights, the endless sacrifices, all culminating in this unbearable goodbye. But grief was not the only shadow looming over the family. Just days after Charlie's passing, another crisis struck without warning. Ethan began showing signs of relapse. His breathing became shallow, and his skin took on a pale, sickly hue. Panic surged through Sarah and Michael as they rushed him back to the hospital. "Not again," Michael muttered under his breath, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The fear in their hearts was palpable. Had all their efforts been for nothing? Had Charlie's sacrifice been in vain? Dr. Coleman examined Ethan with a furrowed brow, his usual calm demeanor replaced by unease. "We'll do everything we can," he assured them, though the uncertainty in his voice only deepened their dread. As they sat in the sterile waiting room, the reality of their financial struggles hit them like a tidal wave. Between Ethan's prolonged hospitalization and the countless treatments, their savings were nearly depleted. They had sold almost everything they owned, yet the bills kept piling up, each envelope a cruel reminder of the price of survival. Sarah buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by guilt and helplessness. "What if we can't afford to keep fighting?" she choked out, her voice barely audible. Michael wrapped an arm around her, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We have to," he replied firmly, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. In the end, Ethan pulled through once again, defying the odds, but the emotional toll left scars that would take years to heal. As they returned home, the absence of Charlie's joyful bark echoed hauntingly through the empty halls. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there was also gratitude for the miracle of Ethan's recovery, for the bond they had shared with Charlie, and for the lessons he had taught them about love, sacrifice, and resilience. Though Charlie was gone, his spirit lingered, guiding them through the darkest moments and reminding them that even in loss, love could endure. The story of Ethan and Charlie was not just a tale of survival. It was a profound testament to the power of love, a force so potent that it defied logic, science, and even death itself. In those harrowing days at St. Grace Hospital, as Ethan teetered on the brink of life and death, something extraordinary unfolded, a bond between boy and dog that transcended the boundaries of what humanity could comprehend. It wasn't merely about loyalty or companionship. It was about an unbreakable connection that challenged the very fabric of nature. As Sarah and Michael watched their son cling to life with Charlie by his side, they bore witness to a truth both beautiful and devastating: love has no limits. It can conquer despair, rewrite destinies, and even resurrect hope from the ashes of impossibility. Charlie's sacrifice became the ultimate embodiment of this truth. His unwavering devotion led him to give everything he had, not out of obligation but out of pure, selfless love. Each labored breath he took, each ounce of energy he poured into protecting Ethan, was a testament to the idea that true love demands nothing in return, not even the preservation of one's own life. When Charlie lay exhausted on the hospital floor, his golden fur dulled and his once vibrant eyes dimmed, it felt as though the weight of the universe rested upon his shoulders. Yet, through every tremor of pain and flicker of fading vitality, he remained steadfast, refusing to leave Ethan's side until the boy was safe. This act of supreme sacrifice left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it, a reminder that love is not passive. It is active, fierce, and sometimes requires unimaginable bravery. But Charlie's legacy did not end with his physical presence. Even after his passing, the ripple effects of his love continued to spread far beyond the walls of room 304. For Sarah and Michael, the loss of their beloved companion was a wound that would never fully heal, yet it also ignited a fire within them, a determination to honor Charlie's memory by extending the same compassion he had shown to others. They began visiting animal shelters, dedicating their time and resources to caring for abandoned creatures who, like Charlie, had known hardship but still carried the capacity for boundless affection. Ethan, now stronger and more resilient than ever, became the heart of this mission. He shared Charlie's story with anyone who would listen, his voice trembling with emotion as he spoke of the dog who had saved him when all seemed lost. "He didn't just save me," Ethan often said, his eyes shining with tears. "He taught us how to love without limits." What made Charlie's story so profoundly moving was its universality, the way it resonated with people from all walks of life. Strangers reached out to the family, sharing their own tales of animals who had changed their lives in ways they couldn't explain. Some spoke of dogs who had detected illnesses before doctors could diagnose them. Others recounted stories of cats who had stayed by their sides during moments of grief, offering silent comfort when words failed. These stories served as echoes of Charlie's journey, reinforcing the belief that the bond between humans and animals is not merely incidental but deeply spiritual, rooted in a shared existence that transcends species. Yet the message went deeper still. Charlie's sacrifice illuminated the notion that love leaves behind a legacy of living, breathing imprint on the world that continues long after the source has faded. Though the family faced countless obstacles in their efforts to help other animals' financial strain, emotional exhaustion, and societal skepticism, they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that Charlie's spirit lived on in every life they touched. Their work became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to join their cause and spreading the message that love, no matter how costly, is always worth it. In the end, Charlie's story was not just about a boy and his dog. It was about the transformative power of unconditional love, a force capable of overcoming death, defying natural laws, and leaving an enduring impact on the world. The family learned that while love may demand sacrifices, it also brings immeasurable rewards, healing, unity, and a sense of purpose that transcends individual lifetimes. As they stood together under the silver glow of the moonlight, watching the stars shimmer above, Sarah whispered softly, "Charlie isn't gone. He's everywhere." And in that moment, they understood that love never truly dies. It simply evolves, expanding outward until it touches every corner of existence. The challenges facing Ethan's family grew more daunting with each passing day, testing their resolve in ways they never imagined. After Charlie's miraculous intervention, the hospital administration issued an ultimatum. "If you insist on keeping that dog here, we will have no choice but to refuse further treatment for Ethan." The words hit Sarah and Michael like a sledgehammer. They were already stretched thin emotionally, physically, financially, and now this new threat loomed over them. Dr. Coleman, though skeptical of Charlie's role, intervened cautiously, pleading with the board to reconsider. "This is unprecedented," he argued. "Whatever connection exists between the boy and the dog seems integral to his recovery." But the administrators remained unmoved, citing protocol and liability concerns. For Sarah and Michael, it felt like being asked to choose between saving their son and betraying the bond that had kept him alive. Just as tensions reached their breaking point, nature itself seemed to conspire against them. A violent storm swept through the city, its fury peaking just as Ethan entered another critical phase. Lightning struck the hospital's power grid, plunging room 304 into darkness. Alarms blared, backup generators sputtered to life, but the chaos was overwhelming. In the dim emergency lighting, Sarah clutched Ethan's hand while Michael held Charlie close, the dog trembling despite his usual calm demeanor. "We're losing him," a nurse shouted as Ethan's monitor flatlined again. The air was thick with panic, every second stretching into eternity. Yet amidst the turmoil, Charlie pressed himself against Ethan once more, his body radiating an inexplicable warmth. Against all odds, Ethan stabilized, leaving everyone shaken but grateful. The media frenzy that followed only added to their burden. Headlines screamed of a miracle at Grace Hospital, sparking debates among scientists and skeptics alike. Reporters camped outside the family's home, demanding answers about the unexplainable phenomenon. Sarah and Michael found themselves caught in a whirlwind of scrutiny, their private grief turned into public spectacle. "It wasn't magic," Michael snapped during one particularly heated interview. "It was love, a force none of you seem willing to understand." But even after Charlie's passing, the trials did not end. Determined to honor his memory, the family began rescuing abandoned animals, only to face yet another hurdle: their lack of experience. Caring for injured or traumatized creatures proved far more difficult than anticipated. One evening, a frightened stray dog nearly bit Ethan, leaving Sarah paralyzed with fear. "Maybe we're not cut out for this," she confessed tearfully to Michael. Yet, looking into Ethan's determined eyes, they realized giving up was not an option. Charlie's legacy demanded perseverance even when the path ahead seemed insurmountable. The weight of impending loss pressed down on Sarah and Michael like an unrelenting storm, each breath they took feeling heavier than the last. As Ethan's heart monitor faltered, their world seemed to crumble into fragments too small to piece back together. Sarah clutched her son's frail hand, her nails digging into her own palm as if physical pain could somehow distract her from the emotional abyss threatening to consume her. "Please don't leave us," she whispered hoarsely, her voice cracking under the strain of despair. Michael stood frozen at the foot of the bed, his eyes locked on Ethan's pale face, unable to tear them away even for a moment. Every second felt like an eternity, stretching time into something unbearable. He wanted to scream, to demand answers from the universe that had placed this impossible burden on their shoulders, but all he could do was stand there, paralyzed by helplessness. Meanwhile, Charlie wrestled with his own internal battle, a silent war between survival and sacrifice. His body trembled not just from exhaustion but from the overwhelming instinct to protect Ethan at any cost. Each labored breath he took felt like a betrayal of his own failing health, yet his resolve never wavered. The dog's once vibrant eyes now carried a haunted look, as though he understood the gravity of what was being asked of him. Was it fair? Did he have a choice? These questions lingered in the air around him, unanswered yet undeniable. When he finally leaped onto the bed during Ethan's critical moment, it wasn't just an act of loyalty, it was a conscious decision to give everything he had left, knowing full well it might mean losing himself forever. But the tension didn't end there. Dr. Coleman's skepticism clashed violently with Sarah and Michael's desperate hope. "There's no scientific explanation for this," he muttered, pacing the room after witnessing Ethan's inexplicable recovery. Yet, Sarah refused to let go of the fragile lifeline faith had offered. "Science can't explain everything," she snapped, her voice trembling with both anger and desperation. Her words hung in the air, challenging logic itself while exposing the raw vulnerability of a mother clinging to anything that promised salvation. In the aftermath of Charlie's passing, healing became a journey fraught with shadows. Sarah often found herself staring at empty spaces where Charlie used to lie, her mind replaying memories of his unwavering devotion. Michael threw himself into work, trying to outrun the grief gnawing at his soul. But Ethan, resilient beyond his years, began drawing pictures of Charlie surrounded by light, a child's way of processing loss and finding peace. Slowly, through tears and shared silences, the family learned to carry Charlie's legacy within them, transforming their sorrow into purpose. Love, they realized, wasn't confined to mortality, it lived on in the choices they made and the lives they touched.